There we go. Now we're set. We're making a video. Hi everybody. How's it going today? Stepping in front of the camera for a moment. I've got my coffee here and my morning vape. And I thought that I'd just jump right into it. I was going to make this video to try to convey a message that's so wrapped up in different aspects of life that it's very hard to convey. It's the idea that our illusion of what's going on in the world, our illusion of what other people are thinking, our illusion of what we should be doing or what we're supposed to be doing with our lives, this is created in part by our experiences and what we've been told, but also by our expectations of ourselves. And I want to try to put this as basic as I can without getting too wrapped up in the details of, spirituality or, any other aspect of what it means to be alive. What I'm trying to focus on here is just the idea that each one of us wakes up every morning and we go about our routine, if we have a routine, and throughout the day we may start to take note of different feelings. We may have moments where we're frustrated. We can have moments where we're elated, and generally we learn to try to attach to the times when we're feeling the most elated, to really try to get the most out of those good times. But over the years, if you're paying attention, you learn that what defines those good moments is some of the harder times that we've had. It goes all the way back to ancient philosophies, even as the pendulum swings, rather, that the further you've swung into the darkness, the further you can swing to the light. I don't necessarily believe that you cannot have a great life without having adversity, but I believe that the more adversity that we face, the more likely we are to discover something about ourselves and others within it. And the more people we face as individuals, the more we realize others are constantly trying to change us. Now, I have a line pops into my head earlier. I actually left a comment like this. It was a Jimi Hendrix line. It says, "Let me live my life the way I want to." And it's just a line out of a song, but it always comes to mind because when we were teenagers, my friends and I, a good friend of mine, Mike, and I used to take LSD and sit out in my garage hole, we called it. It was this half garage. My garage in my parents' house was converted halfway into like our teenage hangout room, and we played music in there, and we'd lay there and trip out and listen to a variety of different music, but also there was a lot of philosophy going on as kids that we didn't really realize at the time. I think as I got older, I realized a lot of it was in my own head, that I was doing a lot of different types of thinking than other people were. Not better or worse, just different. And this is how I've learned to really, how to cope with people's differences. I know that there are people out there who think, for example, to take two extremes. There's probably one of my subscribers out there who thinks that I have this great, wonderful life where everything's perfect, falls into place, and I just have all this spare time to come out and make videos, and I just, everything's wonderful. To an extent, that's true, but that's because I create that in my head. There are hard times, there's frustrating times. Sometimes I get angry, sometimes I'm sick. I'm a human being. On the opposite end of that, I know that there's someone out there, which, because I've had several comments pertaining to this, people who say, "Oh, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about, and this guy should do this in his life, and he should do that, and he should do that." And they'll even send me messages, sometimes very kindly, saying, "Oh, if you just do this, you'll be happier." More often than not, it's religious-based, that if you just take Christ in your heart, or if you just yearn for this, or stop thinking this way, or start thinking this way. And I'm instantly triggered by that. Not triggered, I guess, but rather instantly resistant to that, to anyone trying to change me. And I will just completely ignore them and block them out. And it's different than constructive criticism. But constructive criticism is usually only valid when it's given to us by people that know us and love us. But also people that we can see have succeeded in making that work in their own lives. To try to give you an idea of what I'm talking about, there's a pyramid scheme called Melaleuca, which my wife's mother is a member of, and she had us sign up for it years ago, like decades ago. And the idea is that if you just sell this many products, well, and you get this many people under you, oh, well, you can start making money and you can have a car and this and this and this. And so a person may say, hey, if you join this group and you start selling these products, you can make all this money. Well, there's another group called, it's called Herbalife, and I'm getting a little off topic here, but it makes my point. If you've ever heard of Herbalife, it's, just various vitamins and herbs and whatnot that people sell in that same structure. And every time I see an Herbalife sticker, it's on a really beat-up old car. And what this tells me is that the people who are selling Herbalife and mostly sponsoring it are the ones who aren't making millions and the ones who don't have, a lot of money and fancy cars to show for it. And I'm not getting, stepping on any toes when it comes to these groups. Pyramid groups are just bullshit. But people can make a little bit of money off of it. I guess what I'm trying to say is the people who tell you, you should do this, if you just do this in your life, you'll be so much happier, and you look at their lives, and they're not happy. Or if a person says, you need to really get over your anger, but this is a person who's always frustrated in anger and lashing out, to realize that people are projecting their own shortcomings onto us is a very valuable tool. And I mean, beyond anything else that I've personally learned in life as far as psychology and dealing with other people. Don't take the subject as the only part of the discussion that matters. The other person and who's conveying that message also is an important factor. It's kind of like in the alternative media, if you will. People say Alex Jones, for example. Somebody was, if I say Alex Jones is a complete buffoon, he's out there to get money and he really doesn't care much about the stories, he's an actor. And people will say, but what he's saying, some of what he's saying is true. I'll say, yeah, but some of what I'm saying is true too. But some isn't all. It's not a matter of it's not a matter of how much you're right on. It's a matter of what are you trying to delude people on, how much are you trying to fool others. And the point I was trying to make with him is the demeanor with which people convey their messages. A person with a cool, calm, collected demeanor, if you confront them on something like a topic, because I was blocked from Alex Jones like 3 different times back about 10 years ago, or 6, 7 years ago, when he first started really getting up in his YouTube channel, merely for asking questions, and in a respectful tone. And what I learned over the years is that if you ask people questions that confront what they want to believe, they will jump all over and attack you. So what this has shown me is that groups of people separate. There are what some call, I don't like using the term profane. That's what like these snooty, wannabe fucking mystery school people, the people who claim that all you have to do is understand 3, 6, and 9. All you have to know is that everything's in vibration in the universe. And I'm not trying to insult that way of thinking. I'm just saying you don't know what the fuck you're talking about most of the time. And I mean that with all respect. To kind of, get to what I'm getting at there with that whole spiritual aspect. Like earlier I was looking at a list, and it was an entire chart with like pointing to all the parts of the body and how they relate to the chakras and how these different parts of the body relate to, different moods in our past and our future and whatnot. And the question wasn't, is this true? The question was, where's the evidence to back this up and where did it come from? And I'm a big fan of Eastern mysticism. I'm a big fan of Buddhism and some parts of Hinduism and Buddhism in some of their, scope. But when you look back, at where many of the roots of these things came from, you find that there's a lot of loose ends. And so when somebody says, well, this is what chakras are, and you say, well, how do you define this, and how do you know it? Where do you get your information? Oh, well, from other people. They said that they've researched it. And I'm only using that as an extreme example because people do this with everything. If they hear something and they want to share it with you, then they will try to impress that as if it was their own information. And they will be just as offended if you disagree with them because they are so wrapped up in that truth. And I think all of us have been confronted with somebody that says, hey, don't you know? You need to wake up. This is what's going on. And you say, well, actually, it's more complicated than that. And they say, oh, you're just a sheeple. You're still asleep. So those who have sought beyond that just surface look of things, who are digging into the deep, into the mysteries and history and being honest, tend to sit on the sidelines. And that's people like myself even though I make YouTube videos regularly. There are subjects that I deal with in my private life, my personal life rather. It's not private, but just I don't discuss them on videos because all they do is bring out the worst in people. Usually along the lines of those types of mysteries as far as, I have a wall full of like alchemical symbolism and shit, I've always been fascinated with all the different meanings behind these writings, these illustrations, and it's not for the. Here's why I'm bringing this one up, is because I know a lot of people have said, well, religion's tried to fool us. They've taken the original teachings and twisted them, and if we go back and we look at these ancient symbols, we can figure out the depths and the important things of life. But what it comes around to is just living a happy life. And it's a matter of living with service to others, but also service to ourselves. To not shorting ourselves in order to make other people happy. Being a people pleaser, hey, that works for some people. I try to do everything I can, especially for my customers. When it comes to that, that's business. I want people to be happy. But in my personal life, I can only give so much energy to people before I say, hey, you've got to figure it out on your own. In other words, I want to share as much as I possibly can with others, and I want to help others as much as I can. But I know the scope of my limitations on how much I can actually assist another person, because what do I know is the point. The more you learn about what you don't know, the more you realize that the things that you thought you were sure about when you were young, or when you were older, whatever it might be, maybe you're not quite so sure about. And to come full circle, what this has always taught me is by letting our guard down and not being wrapped up in the details of things, not trying to prove ourselves, mostly not trying to convince other people that what we believe is right, then we learn a lot more. We're not obsessed with trying to convey our message and prove ourselves. We're listening instead of talking. And being human is hard. We have faults, we have shortcomings. These have all been wrapped up within many of these symbols, many of these ideas of dark and light. It's not that there's just evil and good intertwined within one another, or some extreme perfect duality, although people can view it that way if they choose. Others will say, well, use the metaphor of a candle. Even the smallest candle lit in a dark room can light the darkest room, but no amount of darkness can extinguish a candle. And these are great metaphors for, trying to see things differently, but the Ouroboros, or the snake eating its tail, is the metaphor for everything. Everything consumes itself, and so do we, and we return to dust. So in the meantime, we're here trying to figure out things the best we can, and the more we're trying to believe that we have a monopoly and convince others we have a monopoly on what's really going on, the more we're just going to waste our own time, if you will, trying to prove things that we're not even sure about ourselves. So, I guess in a nutshell, I'm saying is that life is full of enough chaos. Even the people who think that, or appear to be doing so great, they're having all types of problems in their lives. And the illusion that getting rich and having a white picket fence is going to solve our problems is long gone. And the illusion that the poor somehow inherit the earth, or the meek are better off than the rich, that's also going by the wayside. It has nothing to do with money. It has nothing to do with, your race or your culture, or where you come from. It has everything to do with how you live your life and how you try to improve other people's lives around you, because ultimately we're going to get more satisfaction out of helping someone when both of us are happy about that and both of us get a feeling of, satisfaction, than harming someone else, in which you may think in the short run, I'm getting my revenge, or I'm getting satisfaction, but in reality both people suffer. There are some ingrained parts of us, these altruistic behaviors, as well as our own self-analysis, which we can ignore if we choose, but it will always be there knocking. So to realize that you're standing here now, sitting here now, doing what you're doing now, and that now is the first day of the rest of your life. The past can go by the wayside. There's nothing you can do to change the past. And you shouldn't want to, because everything, even the worst experiences, are a learning lesson that we can take with us into our daily life. And life is not easy. But we can make it easier by choosing to see the light shine through in things, I guess, and stop trying to prove ourselves to one another, and stop trying to please other people at the cost of our own sanity, and to not let other people tell us what they think that we should be doing with our lives, because that's a choice that only we can make. So, peace. Talk to y'all later.